Mike Comtech coming to you here with another video. Today, let's talk a little bit about how to hook two of the Home Depot props together, or two control boxes together. So if you wanted one infrared sensor on one of your props to activate another prop either nearby or whatever, or you can wire it however far you want it to be apart. If one turns on, one control box fires and the other control box will turn on as well at the same time. Now there's a couple of properties that have to be addressed when you're doing this, and I touched on this a little bit on the Singing Santa box with the Frankenstein box, but here I wanted to actually show what I did to do this. So today on the bench I have two control boxes set up. We have the THD 3000 Cyborg box sitting here, and we have Yoda, the Star Wars box, sitting here, right here. And the common thing that needs to happen here is these two control boxes, this one and this one, need to be on the same power supply. They have to be a common ground. So basically I'm using this power supply right here, this variable power supply. These run on 5.9. I just usually dial up about 5.8 or 7 is close enough. And I usually set the current limiting to about 3 amps because we're dealing with a couple of servo props. We're dealing with Yoda servo prop, and then we are dealing with the THD 3000 servo prop. And those require, and they probably did this for overhead reasons, require at least 3 amp power supply at 5.9 volts. And then here I've got an infrared sensor from the THD, but they all have 3 wires. So your 3 wires are all color coded, and they don't use the same color coding on all the different props they make. I mean, look at Star Wars, the Yoda, it's red, white, black, and the THD 3000 is green, blue, and white. But the center pin, right here, the center lead, the blue one here, that is the signal pin. And to verify the pin out on this, it's very easy, and you're not going to hurt anything. You can unplug the IR sensor, like I did here. I'm just using a couple of wires with females on it to plug into the pins here. But if you take and short 2 of the pins, I'll show you. Short 2 pins together, center to outside and center to the other outside. One of those, if the prop is turned on, is going to fire it up, just like if the IR sensor was being made. Because one of these is positive, one is the signal line in the center, that's for sure. The center is definitely signal. And then the outside wire. So this green could either be positive or this white one could be positive. But you won't hurt anything, because if it's neutral, if it's negative, and you short it to the center, it's not going to do anything. You are at the same potential. The positive and negative here is simply to power up the IR sensor. We have to have active power to this guy to be able to work. And then when this does activate on heat or movement, and which was generating heat across this sensor in here, then it fires its output, and then it fires this output high. So this center lead, this blue one, goes high and then activates the control box on the Pacific prop. So what I've done here is take the center pin off of the THD 3000, and we're running that on this line here, the black, or not the black, the brown. And the brown is plugged into the center lead of the Yoda, Star Wars Yoda control box. And these two control boxes, as I said before, are on this same power supply. So we have a common ground circuit here, powering this one and powering that one. So that common ground is there. So it's all you have to do is basically run one wire from the center pin from one prop or one control box over to your other control box that you'd wish to control if you would want one IR sensor to control them both, or any other kind of input. You could use a relay to do the same thing. We could short the 2 pins. We could have the timer relay like this one, like I have set up here. That's what I've got these little outputs for. I have this set to so many seconds, and it will close the 2 pins on the IR input and activate the prop. Especially if I was wanting to exercise, say I did some work in the heads here on the servos or whatever, or the motors or whatever on the different one. Like Marie the maid here, she uses a motor in her mouth, a regular motor, but Frankenstein uses a regular motor in his mouth, but he's servo driven on the eyelids and the eyeballs, and then all the movement in his neck is all servo driven also. So all that is, but if I was going to do any work and I wanted to exercise that, and then because some of these props do not have a automatic repeat function, like Yoda either has sensor mode, which is in what it's in right now, of course, and then we have the other mode is the try-me mode, which it activates this jack right here, and you'd plug in a try-me button or any other kind of normally open circuit, and then when it closes it will activate this control box. And then this one happens to have lights only, and so it doesn't have a continuous. A lot of them have three positions here, but the one of them is a continuous that will just completely keep running the routine. All as long as there's power applied, it will keep running its routine over and over and over and over. But the Yoda does not. It has lights only mode, and Frankenstein is the same way. His control box, he only has a lights only mode, and then the try-me setting, and then the IR setting here, which is what it's on right now, because here's Frankenstein's IR setting, and it would work the same way. See how the coloring is different on Frankenstein? The coloring on Frankenstein's IR input is orange, red, and black. THD 3000 is green, blue, and white, and then Star Wars one is red, white, and black. But the center pin on all of these, as I've discovered so far, and of course even the if I go over here to the skeleton Santa, which is an SVI prop also, here is the IR, and it is red and black and green. But the center pin, as I've discovered in all the boxes, is the actual signal line. So, say for instance, I want THD, let's cover this again here. If I want THD to fire up the same time when this IR sensor is activated, then I'm tying the center pin of THD 3000 to the center pin of the Star Wars Yoda, and then leaving the sensor plugged in, of course, because we want to use that as the activator. So I'm going to power these two guys up, and then the servos are going to reset. Okay, so now they're alert and ready, and if I didn't disturb my connection here, when I pass my hand there over that sensor, they both activate at the same time. And you can do this on multiple, so if you wanted 4 of them, or you wanted 5, or you wanted 6, or if you wanted them all to activate, but you had them in different locations in a big room or something, you could do that. I'll do it one more time here, because now Yoda's servos have reset, so when his eyes close, and I've noticed some of the earlier Yoda ones, there I just activated it again. Let me shut them off. I've noticed also that some of the earlier Yodas, like the ones that they did, some of the people did some review videos of Yoda in 2023, when he stops, his eyes stay open. I bought this, the Yoda parts here just within the last week, and this is the control box that I got. Of course, you have to have that, and I went ahead and bought the Yoda, the arm motor here too, because a lot of times they, I don't know if that has to have the motor in place, because like I was explaining before, there are leaf switches in here, not leaf switches, but micro switches in here that tell the controller what position that motor's in. So then it basically goes to a reset position and then allows the prop to fire back up. So it won't be in a weird position for that. But actually, Yoda would work without the motor plugged in, and it's a 5-pin. So this motor has positive, negative, has a common ground, and it's using a normally open and a normally closed on that micro switch inside this motor here. And actually, it's underneath that cover in the top here with the 3 screws. That's where the micro switch is. The other 2 wires, the red and black on this particular motor, is the actual motor input, but the other 3 is a common, a ground basically, and a normally open and a normally closed. So that tells that control. This tells this control box where this motor is, so it can actually turn back on. So it's safe to turn back on. It doesn't have to worry about being in the wrong position. So if I fire these 2 guys up again, we'll bring them to life. I'll insert the quarter. And then I'll pass my hand over this. So that's how they work, and that's how that does it. So it's kind of neat. And then you could take this a step even farther if you wanted to put, say you wanted to put these relays in place and delay it out. We could probably get into that later on too. Like the first one would trip off on IR, and it would trip. You would use the sense line on these timer relays, and it would trip this, and this starts counting down to a certain specific time that you could program. Then after let's say for instance we did this on Frankenstein, and Frankenstein runs his routine after he was activated. So then it puts the relay in motion, and then when you kind of time it out to where you know how long it takes for him to do his little routine on each one. Then the second one, let's say Yoda would fire up second, and it would run its routine, and then you would have another relay hooked to Yoda on its output on a trigger, and then let him finish before THD 3000 would start and run his routine. So you could do that too, and then that way they're not all talking at the same time. But if you were doing this in a room that was pretty good size, if you wanted to activate them all, like if you had a haunted house situation or whatever, you could do that. But that is a pretty neat way to be able to activate more than one of your Home Depot props on the IR feed by using the center signal line here and hooking them together. But as I pointed out before, these 2, they all have to be sharing the same power supply. And actually this one power supply right here is a 30 volt max, 10 amps max. This thing could run easily, even the servo props, which they really don't ever get close to 3 amps. It's not really saturating the power supply, but they just did that probably for to have a good overhead on the power. You could probably easily power with this power supply. I would say, let's just roughly say 6, because if each prop was pulling around 2 amps, actually that would get you almost to 12. You would pop to 12, but this thing could easily run, let's say safely run 5. Put 5 on here, and then you could run them all in consecutive order, all at the same time, or we could step them out with using time delay relays. But I may cover that more in depth. This would be a more in-depth situation because each one of these would be programmed at a specific time, and we would be using the trigger inputs over here to trigger from a high input from the control box. So we could either use well, actually you could just use the IR sensor because it's going to go high on the center. You could have that trip this relay. It sets it in motion like I said, and then runs the routine. After he's done, this would count down to about, let's say it takes Frankenstein, let's say it takes it 10 seconds to do one routine. So you'd set this to around 12 or whatever, 12 seconds. The relay would stay open for 12 seconds. It would then close, for half a second, activate Yoda. Then the second, let's pretend like this is the second relay off of Yoda, and then it would activate THD 3000. We just step it on down the line. But what I'm showing here is just how to hook two of them consecutively together. So when one activates, and I'll pass my hand over here. Then they both activate. So that's how that would work. It's pretty neat how that would work, and it's all about the signaling. And we're producing the control boxes are designed when they see a high signal on that input, that turns them on. And we could use other sensors here as well. You could use even a microwave sensor. Microwave sensors are a totally different beast altogether than infrared. They are using Doppler radar technology, and they send out a signal, and they work just like a Doppler radar would work, or like sonar. Any disturbance in the pattern in response coming back, it would set the sensor off. Or you could use, and you can use a manual switch here too if you wanted to use a foot switch or a light dependent resistor or a photocell to do this. If you turn on the lights in the room, boom, they'll all activate, or one would activate. So it's kind of like what I covered in my Zoltar series of videos about how to activate him. All of these theories that go across all these props is pretty much, it's the same. We are talking about signaling, digital signaling. And most of these stuff uses positive inputs to trigger. And then some stuff then will output a negative voltage to trigger. It just depends. But if you had one like that, that can be rectified too. You can use a relay in place of that to do that. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. And we shall talk to you all guys later.